Helldivers 2 Liberty, Propaganda, and Deceit. Gonna talk about Helldivers 2 and its themes of unscrupulous governments controlling people and stuff today, but these themes in Helldivers aren't subtle. I'm not here to tell you lore and whatnot to reveal secrets within the game. Arrowhead Game Studios told us pretty obviously who Super Earth is, and I believe them. Don't worry, this isn't a certified Mugatu moment, I just want to talk about it because this game has been consuming my life. Wait though. What if all the notes around the map we can read were actually put there by the darn bots to make us think Super Earth is bad? What if Super Earth good and bot really is bad? Why did the bot take my baby? Propaganda is hard. Also, as a side note, as I'm sure you're aware, Helldivers is heavily inspired by the Starship Troopers movie, specifically the movie though, because the book, from other accounts, I haven't read it myself because I'm just a plebeian, is actually very much in support of the themes it represents within its story. Basically, if you watch the Starship Troopers movie and take absolutely everything at face value, without a hint of irony, you get the Starship Troopers book, which is interesting because of the timing that both of these things were released. The book was released after the Second World War, where people had some level of reverence for what the soldiers and allied nations had to do, while the movie was released in a post-Vietnam War era, a war that saw a lot of protest and opposition because of the crooked motives of those in power.
Hello, Hell, do you read me?
Let's start with the bots, those socialist freaks of nature. I'll give a brief overview of what they are and how they supposedly came to be. Back in Helldivers 1, you fought against a slightly different faction, the Cyborgs. They ran under the same banner as the Automatons, which leads us to believe the bots are the creations or descendants of the Cyborgs, not to mention the binary tweet Arrowhead put out that when translated pretty much stated exactly that. In-game, you can find a fair amount of evidence suggesting that the bots are made from humans or have had their consciousness transferred into their metal frames somehow, possibly through some kind of brain transplant, since these sad sacks over here have long scars on their foreheads. Fortunately, I'll never know how this would feel, my brain is simply too smooth and would simply slip from everyone's grasp.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Now, Terminids, often referred to as Nids. Nids. Tyranids. Which of these two would you rather be killed by? On one hand, it's being torn apart after being sent to fight by your satirical fascistic society, and on the other hand, it's being torn apart after being sent to fight by your satirical fascistic society. Anyway, Terminids. They are originally from Kepler Prime. We don't know if they are sentient, have governance or language, and I'm not going to start sympathizing with them to find out, or who knows, maybe I will to spice things up after day 1984 in my democratically managed home. Helldivers had already been in contact with the bugs on Kepler Prime in the First Galactic War, where you could see oil rigs with the Helldivers logo. For a long time after the First War, the bugs were kept on farms to harvest that sweet E710, the fuel used to power humanity's FTL drives. I'd say the importance of E710 is akin to the importance of spice in Dune. Super Earth maintains that the bugs are simply too dangerous to keep alive in order to keep the people invested in a war. Why wouldn't you want to kill the thing that is hungry for your democracy? But in reality, they are no more evil than fire, if you're a sympathizer. Liberty, democracy, prosperity. These are the three tenets that the people of Super Earth live by and are the primary reason they are convinced to go to war, to defend and maintain your liberty, to protect your democratic way of life, and to keep an age of prosperity going for as long as possible. The people have been convinced these reasons are good enough to kill for, but more importantly to die for. In some ways you could say that's fair, to want to protect your way of life and people. It's just unfortunate we know that isn't really the goal of the people in power. I'll get into this later, but there are some reasons, particularly with the automatons, where it's very easy to see why you might want to fight them. They pretty much do half the propaganda for the Federation. So, are the principles I just mentioned worth dying for? I don't have an answer to that question because the answer will be so heavily dependent on you as a person. I'm just a monkey that doesn't even like bananas, so maybe I'd eat one in protest of war from my room here, I don't know. You might be willing to sign up to fight, who knows, it's probably easier to decide these things are worth killing for than it is to decide if they are worth dying for. And when your enemies are baby-stealing socialists and democracy-eating bugs, the decision gets even easier. Now, these principles might be good enough reasons to fight when they are honest and faithful, but there's no illusion to us that the people in power of the Federation want this war for all the potential profit that war brings. As we all know, anything can be bought and sold for the right oil, just in this case it's buying oil, money and power with human life. This obviously happens in the real world without even starting on the absolutely insane scale it has been brought up to in the game, and is in my opinion one of the bigger tragedies being highlighted by the game's satire. And I have a question for you. Is the cost, in the form of human life, worth it? I'm going to keep my answers and interpretations purely within the game's scope here. So E710 is what powers the faster than light drives of human ships. Without it, humanity lives and dies in the Sol system. Thankfully, I'll be long dead before I ever have to comprehend the possibility of humanity being trapped in our solar system. But for the people in Helldivers, E710 keeps the Federation, and therefore its people, from collapsing into a state of entropy far sooner than we would like. And if they stopped harvesting E710, everyone would immediately be cut off from each other and the whole system of governance and society would collapse. So, if we completely remove the fact that the bugs are killed on mass scales to harvest E710 and its moral implications, I'd say yes, the cost of obtaining it is at least justifiable. The farms the bugs were on not being big enough, however, is simply an issue of greed and people wanting to make more money at the cost of sacrificing people. If I ever make my own country, money will be illegal. Also, to use a metaphor if you may be so kind as to allow me, we farm animals for meat, which we then eat to sustain our ever-growing population, so I'd say it's a reasonable course of action. Now imagine though, we somehow forcibly grow their populations, release them, declare war on them, and start dropping 500 kilogram bombs on them to harvest the meat faster. Now replace animals and meat with bugs and D710, so when the goal is keeping your population alive, I'd say yeah, it's worth it. Anything beyond that, like war profiteering, then definitely not. What a real hot take there, I know. Liberty. In another word, freedom. And what does freedom in the Federation look like? Ah, yes. Rows and rows of identical houses where I can see my neighbours wearing identical outfits to myself and wave hello to the armed military patrolling the streets of my suburb. Super Earth society is one that encourages people to report any form of dissidence, so snitching on your neighbours and friends. Oh Federation, how Gestapo of you. It is just straight up illegal to express any negative opinions of the Federation and government, and you might be arrested or, made not alive. The galaxy wide web is constantly monitored to weed out alien sympathizers, and if you even try to suggest peace talks with the cyborg of Cyberstan, you're labelled as a hippie, like that's a bad thing. With Senator John W. Killjoy, excellent name by the way, threatening to imprison anyone spreading these ideas. So, in short, it's basically like talking crap in current year United Kingdom. I'm giving a thumbs up right now, you just can't see it. Pussy is the automated system in which the citizens of Super Earth answer some questions on the GWW, and the computer will vote on the citizens' behalf based on their answers. In theory, this almost sounds like a good system, where instead of politicians being able to create cults of personality, or for parties to use any and all kinds of posturing to obtain votes, it could all be based on what the person voting relates to and what they value the most, politically speaking. So, this system will definitely be used in good faith for the betterment of humanity, right? Maybe? Well, no. It's a fascist dictatorship masquerading as an algorithm helping you decide who is best for you, when you aren't deciding anything because the leadership simply never changes. Okay, we're going to start off this part with a powerful statement. You are not immune to propaganda. I am not immune to propaganda. He's definitely not immune to propaganda. And this guy's literally making it. But what is propaganda? In its simplest terms, it is information served to you in a biased or intentionally misleading way. The information given to you in this way is used to persuade you to think a certain way about specific topics and influence your actions on them, to progress the agenda of organized groups, in this case the Federation of Super Earth. To use some modern real-world examples, back in 2016 we had Brexit absolutely destroying mine, and many others' mental health because of the absolute ineptitude of the whole thing. One thing was this statistic of £350 million a week being sent to the EU. This number was hyperinflated, and the British people were promised this money would be funneled back into the NHS, the British healthcare system for those who don't know. As it stands, this figure never really existed and was used to influence the public to vote in a specific way, but the NHS never saw this money. So, where's the 350, Boris? I'm very anti-Brexit if you can't tell. As a more general example, Fox News in the US lying to its viewers for better ratings and political support of one party, conducting interviews in a manner to make the interviewee look bad through leading questions and stuff. Back to the game. How does the Federation use propaganda? The Federation seems to like a mixture of propaganda and simply disappearing you if you show any kind of dissent. And my goodness, is it easy to commit treason in the Federation. Simply walk too far away from the mission area for a few seconds and you're a traitor. So, you questioned why we're fighting the bugs and if they are sentient. Lol, says the Federation, to the mines with you, if you're lucky. Why are the bots stealing babies, you ask? LMAO, you are no longer alive, you commie socialist. The Federation uses propaganda to convince its population that everything outside of the Federation is bad. Even wanting to change things within the Federation for the better is simply unacceptable. I have a little more to say about the bots in a sec, but it's pertinent here. The bots are not evil because they steal babies. I mean, that is pretty bad. They are evil because they are socialist. The Federation has convinced the population that socialists steal babies. So, well then, what are we supposed to think about those who do not align with the Federation? Before the bots were created, we had the cyborgs, communist robots that wanted to secede from the Federation. The first war with the cyborgs started with an attack on a civilian area with a bomb. We don't really know if they did it or if the Federation did it to justify a war, but considering how the Federation operates, the latter seems more likely. Just look at the animated trailer. I know I keep referencing the baby theft shenanigans. The way the Devastator runs away with the pram while the mother falls to her knees and cries is just very funny to me. But this is a way of manipulating the view of the other factions. A light-hearted animation like this will plant seeds in people's minds. People see the automatons as this aggressive force coming to take away their democracy and force communism and socialism on them, if not outright kill them. And with scenes like this playing out across the galaxy, the Federation doesn't really even have to do that much work to convince the people to go to war with them. Even if these things would have never happened to begin with, if the Federation weren't actively pursuing war. So, quote time. The bugs are everywhere, and if they are not destroyed, they can spell the end for humanity. This statement about the bugs implies that finding a way to deal with the bugs permanently is an ongoing investigation. They aren't everywhere, just a segment of the galaxy. But the Federation describes them as a threat that needs to be completely eradicated, so the war with them must go on until every last bug has been stomped into the next life. But the Federation already knows how to kill them, so why don't they? So, we've established that the Federation likes to lie, like some kind of big fat phony. A lot of this lying is done through the Ministry of Truth, everyone's favourite, totally trustworthy superstore review system. Oh, and they're also the guys who lie to you about why child labour is good. Yeah, they got that child labour going. Quote time. The automatons should have been content with what they had. Instead, they tried to take for themselves what the citizens of Super Earth had proudly built. Now, they're going to find out just how hard every man, woman, and child over the age of 7 will work to stop them. Do your part, get to work. Here's another nice quote from Brash Tactics, approved by the Ministry. Young bucks always think they're invincible, and while they are mostly right, the fact of the matter is that Helldivers with broken arms cannot aim. Helldivers with broken legs cannot run, and Helldivers with serious injuries to their vital organs will bleed out before they can say, "Death to my enemies." So next time you find yourself unable to run, aim, or stay alive, stick yourself with a stim, soldier. Brash Tactics, use 'em or die trying. Which is in direct contrast to the statistic. that the average operational lifespan of a Helldiver is 2 minutes, but here they are implying a stim will save you. Maybe you'll last 2 minutes and 30 seconds instead. And the only truthful document available to us from the Federation, the contract of employment, makes many references to being separated into multiple parts in many ways. Give it a read. Whoever wrote it clearly had a great time. Why lie to the people though? What do they gain? Money? Power? Sounds good, right? What, you thought I'd have more to answer that question? Fine. Getting people to go to war with the Terminids would probably have been impossible without convincing them of the mortal threat they pose to their way of life. But they need that E710. So why not let them break containment, reproduce on a massive scale, take over some planets, capture footage of them eating people, and then declare war on them? I'd say the E710 is a pretty good reason for the Federation to want to let them break containment, reproduce on a massive scale, and then go to war with them to suck up all that newly produced oil that was probably produced on a scale as big as, if not but bigger, and way faster than what could be produced on the farms. And if you really do have a way to wipe them out already, you can sustain the war for as long as you need to. Like I said before, the Federation literally runs on E710. And for the bots, Cyberstan had factories and forges coming out the wazoo. Factories and forges that were probably highly efficient because they were made by cyborgs. They got that robot brain computation. But also because they have a different political ideology. The Federation doesn't want their ideas being freely spread because it creates political division, which would then threaten the Federation's power and control. So, do the ends justify the means? This is a little more complicated to answer because if you ask me, it depends on the time period. Pre-discovery of E710 and FTL travel? Absolutely not justifiable. Find another way to expand that does not require throwing people into a literal meat grinder shaped like claws and teeth. But in the modern Helldivers landscape, at this point the Federation is literally a pile of rocks and sticks held together by E710, stretched across a whole galaxy. If they suddenly developed a moral compass and put a stop to it, the Federation, and by extension, the more innocent civilians that are ultimately the victims of their lies, would suffer, which is what makes this such an excellent cautionary tale. So, the moral of the story, be critical of everything, and don't trust politicians. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for getting this far into the video. The Helldivers lore isn't really all that deep. A lot of what I talked about is cobbled together from hints in the game, external info from devs and stuff, and what the community was able to find and post online. Reddit as a source on a paper, lol. If you want to challenge any of my points, leave a comment and I'll do my best to reply. I love talking about things like this in games. So if you enjoyed it, please remember to leave a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Slay the princess.